Megaman is rad. The Blue Bomber has had quite a storied history in the United States, but if you dive into his native Japan, you'll find a world beyond even the plethora of spin-offs and adaptations you may be familiar with. Now, there are actually several different incarnations of Mega Man, or if you're a Japanese purist, Rockman, in manga form. I'll be focusing on two today. The first we'll talk about is simply titled Rockman, created by manga veteran Shigeto Ikehara. Now, it's pretty well known that one of Rockman's biggest inspirations is the classic manga and anime, Tetsuwan Atom, which can be translated as Mighty Atom, but you're probably more familiar with it as Astro Boy. This is the work with which the great Osamu Tezuka is best known for worldwide. Now, this is important because Shigeto Ikehara joined Tezuka Productions in the 1970s and worked directly under Tezuka as an assistant for series like Marvelous Melmo, which I have to admit I had never heard of before working on this video. Regardless, it's only appropriate that one of the pupils of Tezuka brought his talent to Rockman in manga form. Ikehara's series of adaptations debuted in the January issue of the now-defunct Comic Bomb Bomb in 1992, and the series ran until 1996. What you're looking at on the screen here is a collection of the adaptations of the original NES Rockmans, or would that be Rockmen, 1 and 2, that was published in 2014, so it's very easy to find on eBay or Amazon. Or, if you're lucky enough to live in an area with a Japanese bookstore like Kinokuniya, or Book Off, you should be able to contact them and see if they can order it. The artwork, clearly inspired by Tezuka, is crisp and clean, with wonderful expressions and page layouts that emphasize the cinematic nature of the action. It replicates the Japanese box art to a T. Imagine reading this in 1992 when your previous encounters with Rockman were limited to the original NES Rockman games. This breathes life into the familiar iconography in a very satisfying way, a way that just wasn't possible in games at the time. The story is expanded upon in interesting ways that sometimes diverge from the game. Centaur Man in Rockman 6 is actually a woman. Anyway, the language used here is also being published in a magazine aimed at elementary schoolers. Pretty simple, so if your Japanese is limited, like mine is, you should be able to get through it with a little help from a dictionary. I should point out that in addition to Rockman 6 and 1 and 2, there were actually adaptations of practically every Rockman game, all the way up to Rockman 7, drawn by Ikehara. They skipped Rockman 3, and apparently they were not published in order. Rockman 4 was published before Rockman 1, presumably because it was the latest game at the time of its publication, and they went back and did the rest. These can be found on eBay, although in varying condition and affordability. Aside from the main series games, there are adaptations of the Game Boy versions, titled Rockman World, a side story that takes place sometime between Rockman 4 and 6, and even a strange meta-series set in the real world about a group of kids who use their skills playing video games, including but not limited to the Rockman World games on Game Boy, to defeat an evil organization bent on using the technology of the Game Boy to rule the world! What? This last one actually predates Ikehara's involvement in straight adaptations, having begun serialization in 1989. In addition to manga relating to the main or classic series of Rockman games, Ikehara also did adaptations of the first 3 Rockman X games, the first of which being titled Irregular Hunter Rockman X. These stick with the trend of being straightforward adaptations of the games and retain the art style of the original cover art. These can also be found on eBay, and like the original Ikehara adaptations outside of Rockman 1 and 2, have not been republished. This is my incredibly smooth way of segueing into our next topic, the other series of Rockman X manga published by Comic Bomb Bomb. This one was authored by Yoshihiro Iwamoto and covers Rockman X 1 through 4, running from 1994 to 1998, though special one-off manga have been authored as recently as 2018 to tie into special releases of the Rockman trading card games. Iwamoto also designed Groundman and Magic Man in the 1998 Super Famicom game Rockman and Forte, released in the US as Megaman and Bass for the Game Boy Advance in 2003. And many of his illustrations are used in merchandise such as the aforementioned card games. Also, he was responsible for a manga adaptation of the 2003 Astro Boy anime, which is yet another Tezuka connection. This manga takes a different approach to that of the Ikehara series. It's more in tune with what people would refer to as a shonen style of storytelling, and appears to be intended for a slightly older audience, despite the fact that it was published in the same magazine. The language is also of a slightly higher reading level, so if you're new to Japanese, it might be slightly tougher to read. There are English fan translations available out there if you know how to find them, but I can't really endorse those as the picture quality is of a lower standard, and I will always prefer to hold the physical product in my hand. The volumes that I have combine the Tenkoban sets into new omnibus editions, separated by which game they're adapting. Unlike the Ikehara series, these new versions collect the entire series, so you don't have to go searching for faded copies of the old sets on eBay. The larger page format of these reprints also really enhances the experience. It brings it closer to how the pages were originally intended to be published, in the larger magazine format, but on higher quality paper than if you were to collect the old back issues. I have to say that I prefer Ikehara's design sensibility to Iwamoto's, but Iwamoto's art style lends itself to the sort of story he's telling. Ikehara's cartoony designs would feel out of place in the high-stakes, melodramatic world that this Rockman X series inhabits. It's closer to what comes to mind when someone says manga, which can be a good or bad thing depending on what your preference is. I also appreciate the attempts to add some more introspection to the proceedings. X is confronted with the ethical dilemma that's implied in the original games. He's a robot fighting for peace, but he has to attack his own kind who are rebelling against the human race for essentially using robots as slaves. Ikehara's Rockman is a peaceful robot and doesn't want to fight. But Dr. Wily is pretty unambiguously evil, whereas the robot rebellion here kind of has a point. I'd even say that it can be compared to the recent Black Panther film, where the language of black liberation is put in the mouth of the main antagonist. Is the society that X is protecting worth it? Granted, it's still a comic book for children, so it doesn't dwell on it too much, and ultimately cool explosions are more important than philosophical ruminations. Still, it shows that Iwamoto believes in the story that he's telling. It's not just a licensed cash grab, and it's definitely worth your time. Anyways, that's all I have to say about today's manga. There have been several other adaptations of Rockman, including a version of the NT Warrior anime, the Star Force games, and so on. I didn't cover these because not only are some of these already available in English, but I felt like I had more to say about these two particular authors. So if you like this video, please go ahead and let me know by clicking like and subscribing and all that stuff that you're used to people on YouTube asking you to do. And hey, let me know what you want me to cover. Please keep in mind that if manga is too hard to find, then I likely won't be able to cover it because I do only have modest means at my disposal and don't have access to a ton of research material. But I'll do my best.